Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Tuesday. It's going up for the next 3 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. However, wherever, whenever you're watching or listening or both to today's program, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you being along for 580 Sports Talk. My name is Dan Lucero. It's going to be mostly me today. I'm going to level with you. Brendan Dorzinski's off today. Spencer Dupuy's handling the ag side. He'll come in for a little bit, but for the most part, it's you and me today. And I'm looking forward to that because we have got a lot to discuss on this Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk. 3 weeks ago, the Kansas City Chiefs felt inevitable. And now it doesn't even feel inevitable that they will make the playoffs. We have had 24 hours, more than that now, to distance ourselves from their discouraging loss to the Broncos on Sunday in Denver. And now we must look at how the Chiefs have gotten here and how they can pull themselves out of the mess that they find themselves in, which leaves the playoff odds for the Chiefs at just slightly better than a coin flip. Mind you, this is not Super Bowl odds. This is not division odds, number one seed odds, playoff odds. 55%, according to ESPN's FPI. 55% chance to make the playoffs. I would never have believed it if you told me that would be the Chiefs' number to make the playoffs after 10 games this season. But we've had time to be emotional about it, right? Now let's look at the cold, hard facts of it. How did the Chiefs get here? How in the world has this season gotten to where it has gotten? We're going to talk about it. Want to hear from you. What do you think is the primary reason why the Chiefs? And I want one, the biggest. What in your mind is the biggest reason that the Chiefs find themselves at 5-5? And your answer could be tangible. Your answer could be intangible. Your answer could be humorous, whatever you like. But I want to hear from you today. What is the biggest reason you believe the Chiefs have ended up where they have ended up with 7 games to play? You can text the show 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. You can also interact in the live chat on our YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. A hello and howdy to our chatters so far. I see Christopher's in, Vance, Mark H., and I'm sure we'll see more as we go along throughout the day. But welcome in, gentlemen. Look forward to hearing from more of you. And hey, go like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, if you have yet to do so. And join us in the live chat if you watch live from 3 to 6 here on the YouTube stream. Again, the text line as well to weigh in, 785-272-9429. So we'll talk about the Chiefs, why they're where they are. We're going to talk a little bit. We'll focus a little bit on the offense today. Just how bad is the Chiefs' running game? However bad you think it is, it's worse. I wish I had better news for you. However bad you think the Chiefs are at running the ball, they're worse. They're worse than you think. And we'll discuss that. We'll also talk about something Spencer brought up yesterday that I think is an interesting argument. And I mentioned on yesterday's show, hey, put a pin in that. I want to pull at that thread a little bit later on in the week. So we'll talk about today. Have the Chiefs gotten just a little bit stale, a little bit predictable on offense? So we'll get into that later on in today's program. Also, we're going to talk some college hoops. Champions Classic is tonight. Speaking of stale, are we a little bit over this event, playing the same 3 teams every 3 years? The Tuesday night. It's not even the opener or the unofficial open to the college basketball season anymore because there have been some other marquee events and games. And it's certainly not the most prominent MTE multi-team event that there is. Or maybe it's just ennui from the KU perspective going into tonight's matchup with Duke the knowledge that Darryn Peterson is not going to play, which makes KU a double-figure underdog going into tonight's matchup with the Blue Devils. You tell me, but like the Champions Classic used to be like, all right, college basketball's here. Maybe there's been a game or two, but now the rubber meets the road, and this is the first time we're really going to see some of the very best talent college basketball has to offer, the Champions Classic. KU, Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State for some reason. Those four teams meeting at a different site every year. Used to get a lot more revved up for it than I do now, especially because, man, KU played Duke last year, remember? KU played Duke in Vegas. Like, it should be a special thing that these teams get together. But for a while there, KU was playing Kentucky every year because that was always the matchup in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. And then, you know, you could wind up playing Duke every year in the Players era or something like that, or in Maui or whatever it is. It just, I think the event has lost a little bit of its luster. I do. I like the idea of it going back to being a season kickoff rather than, well, we've seen 4 games. We even saw a big road game for KU against a ranked team already. And now the Champions Classic is here. So maybe they're just not handling it right like they used to. Maybe it's just getting a little stale. Maybe it's a little past its expiration date. But I don't know. I'm not as jazzed for KU Duke as I have been in past years. And I do think that in the short view, no Bucket Jones tonight has a lot to do with that, because it goes from being a showcase of maybe the top 2 picks in next year's NBA draft to Cam Boozer and Flory Badunga. And I like Flory, but KU definitely an arm tied behind their back going into this matchup without Darryn Peterson, who will sit out his 3rd straight game with that hamstring injury. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Also, K-State won a game last night, and it's, again, another one of those. You're going to look at the box score if you didn't watch the game, and you're going to think, oh, my God, K-State can't guard. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're a great defensive team all of a sudden, but I am going to tell you that sometimes the box score lies, and that, again, you should be more encouraged by the manner in which Kansas State won the game than discouraged by the number of points that they ended up giving up. Not that the defense can't use work. And last night I thought it was more about personnel than effort. But K-State won a game that they absolutely would have lost last year. They won a game where they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat from 3-point range. And they won the game anyway. And they won the game anyway because they had the best player on the court. And I'm starting to wonder if it's maybe the best player in the Jerome Tang era in PJ Haggerty. And I know we got a ways to go, and he's got to do it against the Big 12 like Keontae Johnson did in the Elite 8 season. But, PJ Haggerty scored 31 on 13 shots last night and had the first 30-point and 10-rebound game for a Wildcat since Michael Beasley. That's how far back you have to go for one of those games. Kid is the truth. So we're going to talk some college hoops later on the show. Speaking of KU, it is a Tuesday, so at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, our guest today, Michael Swain, Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We'll get Michael's perspective on the Champions Classic tonight and a look ahead to the final games of KU's football season as well. So there's all that, plus your Tuesday shenanigans. If it's just me in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll run Ask Me Anything again in lieu of Random Question Tuesday. So be thinking of some questions if we get there. We got some headlines that we're going to get into. We got another round of What Is Wrong With You, of course, on the show. And your texts, 785-272-9429, and your YouTube comments, 580 Sports Talk in the live chat on our YouTube channel. All right. Like I said, we had a day to be emotional, getting our feelings a little bit about that Chiefs loss to the Broncos and being 5-5 and what that all means. Now let's get logical for a moment. How in the world did a Kansas City Chiefs team that 3 weeks ago looked inevitable now looks inept? That a Chiefs team that looked like it belonged in any conversation of who the best teams are in the NFL, a conversation that they have dominated for the better part of the last 7 years, now all of a sudden turn into a team that is outside the AFC playoff picture. And not just by virtue of a tiebreaker or by virtue of one game, but because of the tiebreaker, virtually 2 games out of a playoff spot with 7 to play. How in the world did a team quarterbacked by Patrick Mahomes, who should be in his prime in his age 30 season, get here? Well, logical to me, that means looking at the numbers first. You know I'm a numbers guy. Try not to make your head too dizzy with them, but let's go to the numbers first. Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com had a whole column yesterday. If you haven't read it, you should. Maybe you don't want to read it. Maybe you don't like marinating in the losing and the frustration of the last 3 weeks now of Chiefs football. But if you care about the team, I would recommend that you read it. And what Bill Barnwell lays out is how much of this 5-5 record is down to some bum luck, because the underlying numbers, the numbers that strip out context, not all context, but in-game context and give more credence to what you do, how well you do it, how frequently you do it, the quality of opponent that you do it against. The Chiefs right now, let's just compare them to last year, because last year the Chiefs went 15-2 and went to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have a better point differential than they did last year. Right now, average margin of victory is better this year than it was last year. That is, again, despite being 500. They are a higher ranking team in DVOA than they were last year. And in ESPN's Football Power Index, they're the best team in the NFL. Even after Sunday's loss, they still rank at the top of ESPN's FPI. So those statistical indications match what we would have been more than willing to say about this team before the Buffalo game. They're better than they were last year. And you can point to areas where the Chiefs are better than they were last year. I think the offensive line has been better. I think the reliability of the wide receiver core has been better. He hasn't been great the last 2 games, but remember, Patrick Mahomes entered the Buffalo game as the favorite to win the MVP in the NFL, or at least one of the top favorites. That's obviously changed, but again, the stuff that strips out what happens on the scoreboard and just looks at the play by play of it, they all still think pretty highly, those numbers of the Kansas City Chiefs. And that squares with a team that is 5-0 with 5 pretty handy wins and 5 losses by 1 score. And in 3 of the 5 one-score losses this season, Patrick Mahomes has thrown a red zone interception. Now, we are stretching the definition of red zone interception because the play on which Mahomes was intercepted by Mick whoever for the Broncos, they yelled at in the YouTube comments because I conflated the McLaughlin and the McMillans on the Broncos. Like, who cares? I don't think about the Broncos. I still don't think about the Broncos. I'm done thinking about the Broncos. I get McMillan and Mc whatever. I get them mixed up all the time. They're both little guys, not star players. I got them screwed up. Who cares? But Mick whoever who intercepted the pass, I think it was McMillan. Maybe I'm wrong. I honestly don't care enough to look. But Mahomes threw that interception to 21. Just outside the red zone. So it's stretching the definition a little bit of what is a red zone interception, but it is of a piece with the interception off of Travis Kelce's hands at the goal line and into the hands of Philadelphia's Andrew Makuba in week 2. And it is of a piece with the 99-yard pick 6 by Devin Lloyd in the Jacksonville game. Those red zone interceptions all took points off the board for the Chiefs. Those are not kicks, even in what has been a difficult year, that Harrison Butker has missed this season. I don't believe he has missed anything, missed a field goal inside of 35 this year. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's usually, most NFL kickers are pretty automatic from inside 35. So at the bare minimum, you were looking at those 3 drives that the Chiefs were on, at least scoring 3 points. No guarantees, but a pretty high probability of at least 3. And given that the Chiefs have been fairly proficient in the red zone otherwise this year, maybe even 7 points. You feel good about 7 when you get in the red zone with the Chiefs. But each of those interceptions, Lloyd's for Jacksonville obviously went immediately all the way back for a touchdown, but the ensuing Philadelphia drive after the Makuba interception was a touchdown, and the ensuing Bronco drive after Mick What's-His-Name's interception, that went for a touchdown because Christian Fulton got cooked over the top by Troy Franklin and Bo Nix, and I'm still not over Christian Fulton all of a sudden being a starter for the Chiefs defense in week 11 after 10 weeks of he can't even get on the field. Another topic for another segment. But that's a minimum 10-point swing on all three of those throws in games that the Chiefs lost by 3, 3, and 3 points. So, uncharacteristic mistakes by Mahomes. He threw 2 red zone interceptions in 100-odd attempts last year, and now he's thrown 2 in 60-odd this year, plus the one just outside the red zone against the Broncos. So, maximum impact of your mistakes. Maximum impact of the mistakes of a player who does not frequently make those kinds of maximally impactful mistakes. And all three of them, you could argue, flipped those results. If you take out all three of those plays, I think you can say that the Chiefs, I mean, there was a lot of time left in the Philadelphia game, a lot of time left in every game. Those were all, I believe, second half plays, but there was plenty of time, full quarter and change left in all three of those scenarios. But if you remove those plays and you tack on 3 of the Chiefs score and subtract 7 from the opponent's score, Chiefs probably go on to win. You'd like to think. Maybe all 3 of those games. So that's the rational, right? That this is a team that has outperformed its record, that has had some bad fortune in close games that you would expect to turn around, because the big picture with the Chiefs is not they don't know how to win close games. In fact, last year, they didn't know how to lose them. So it's been a bit of regression to the mean in record in one-score games, but that's the rational, right? That's the rational. But let's tell the stats to shut up for a moment, because I don't know if you know this. They don't seed the playoffs based on ESPN's FPI. So let's tell the stats to shut up for a second and get back to the 2 intangible questions that I am asking myself about the Chiefs 10 games in. Number 1, do the Chiefs have enough elite talent right now? Do they have enough of the elite talent that gives you the kind of margin for error that it doesn't feel like the Chiefs have operated with this season? Bill Barnwell 2 weeks ago posted a mid-season all-pro team. There were only 2 Chiefs on that list, Mahomes and McDuffie. There were 7 Broncos, for what that's worth. I don't think the Chiefs have a ton of weaknesses. They don't have a lot of guys who are starting who I would consider to be unplayable. Like, obviously, the running back situation is not particularly great, but like, there's not an obvious weak link at wide receiver. Like, they don't have Sky Moore out there getting wide receiver 3 reps, right? There's not an obvious weak link there. Tight end situation is pretty good. Travis Kelce's playing at an elite level, and not just an elite for a tight end production-wise level. Like, Kelce's having a great year. They've got a really, really good center and a really, really good right guard and a really promising left tackle. There's no obvious weakness on the offensive line other than Juwan Taylor's brain. There's not, the defensive tackle rotation isn't spectacular, but they've got playable guys. And Mike Pennell over Derek Nottie helps a lot. Like, this is not a team, I don't think, with a lot of, they're not running a lot of like C-, D+ guys out there on the field. That's good. That's good. And that helps your GPA, so to speak. But where are the grade A guys for the Chiefs? Mahomes and McDuffie, sure. But outside of that, you've heard me say it. I stole it from Jerome Tang, but I think it is a unified theory of dudes. Dudes are what win games. And there are 2 guys on this roster who have been dudes, capital D, dudes, throughout this entire dynastic run for the Chiefs. And frankly, one of them, Chris Jones, has only intermittently got to that level this year. I thought he was really good against Denver. He was awesome against Detroit. And there have been other games where he's kind of disappeared, not really been a factor. And his statistics indicate that he has been less impactful this season. So if he's not a dude, capital D, anymore, not an all-pro guy, Travis Kelce, a wonderful surprise, has played like an all-pro tight end this year. But even again, he's only occasionally on a game-by-game basis. Like he had 9 for 91 and a score against Denver, but he's not giving you that every single week. Giving that more often than anybody would have expected, but it's not every single week he's giving you those kinds of performances where that used to be an every single week kind of thing. So if those guys are only occasionally capital D dudes, and there aren't any capital D dudes anywhere else that matters, like I think Creed Humphrey for a center is a capital D dude, but I don't think that impacts winning like having a dude at wide receiver or a dude at running back or a dude at edge. And I'm not sure the Chiefs have dudes there. I think Rashee Rice is very good. I think there are also times where, yeah, this is his first year coming off a torn ACL. I think the best of Rashee Rice is yet to come, but he's not out there putting up Justin Jefferson numbers. The running backs I'll say more about in a bit. I like George Karlaftis. I think he's gotten better this year. He has some underlying production rates that would suggest that he is near an elite level, but maybe not quite there yet. He's not a Max Crosby. He's not an Aiden Hutchinson. So do the Chiefs have enough elite guys that impact winning in such a way that they have the margin of error to overcome some of the dumb stuff that they've kind of always done, been a little too penalty prone, like they were against Denver? Being a little shaky on special teams. Like you can overcome that if you've got somebody who's going to go make a play on defense and stop you from scoring short field. Where is that guy for the Chiefs? So is there enough elite talent on this Chiefs roster right now? They've got a higher ceiling or a higher floor with regard to their level of talent, but I'm not sure that the ceiling is there like it used to be. And then the second question, is the urgency for the Chiefs still there for a team that has been there and done that and cemented its legacy, and they are a team for all time already, no matter what happens from here? You will not be able to tell the story of the NFL without talking about the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs. You won't. They're part of that fabric forever. And sometimes it's hard to dig deep within that well, within that reserve, to continue to be motivated. I want to give you 2 quotes from 2 different quarterbacks. And I want you to tell me which of these quotes sounds more urgent in the moment. Here's quarterback A, and I'll read the quotes. I'm not going to play you the sound because you'd know which quarterback was which. But quarterback A, quoted after his team's game in Week 11, quote, "Bleep, we want to make the playoffs. We got to go beat some playoff teams. And it's not one game at a time. We don't have that luxury. We've got to think of the whole thing. We have to go on a run, and we're going to do it together." That's quarterback A. Quarterback B, after his team's game in Week 11. "Obviously, it's going to be tough, but at the end of the day, the goal is to get to the playoffs and try to make a run at it. All you can focus on is next week. We have to learn from this one as much as possible, knowing that we're going to get a great opponent this next week. We're kind of at that point where we have to find a way just to win football games, and we have to keep moving forward. That's what this league is all about." Which of those quarterbacks sounds like he's got more of a fire in their belly with that quote? I want to hear more QBA and less QBB, right? A QBB is Mahomes. A QBA is Dak Prescott after last night's Cowboys win. So that's the mindset of a Dak Prescott right now. Bleep this one game at a time. We got to win a bunch of games. They're 4-5-1. They're in trouble. They're in danger of missing the playoffs in the NFC. And I don't think the Chiefs are acting as though they feel like they are in danger of missing the playoffs. And maybe they kind of need to. So maybe this is not a big picture lack of urgency, a lack of urgency that comes down to, well, we've already won everything that there is to win. But maybe it's a lack of urgency in the short run, a lack of urgency feeling like, well, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. We're not worried. We're going to be all right. We have the confidence that we've done this before because we have together. So we're not going to stress. Maybe you view that as a good thing, But I also think that can lead to a certain level of complacency. And I don't know a different word that describes that effort against the Broncos other than, in some ways, complacent. So those are my questions for the Chiefs. Do you have enough dudes, and do you have enough urgency? They got to answer those questions in the affirmative in the next 7 games. Otherwise, January is going to be really, really weird around these parts. We'll take a break. I want to hear your thoughts. Again, I'm looking for what you believe to be the biggest reason the Chiefs are in the position that they are in. The biggest reason for their 5-5 start. The primary culprit, if you will. It can be a player. It can be a side of the ball. It can be an aspect of the game. It can be a tangible and intangible. What do you think the answer is? 785-272-9429 is the text line. You can interact in the YouTube chat, 580 Sports Talk. We're going to take our first break. We'll come back with your thoughts. I've got some more thoughts on the Chiefs' running game. It's worse than you think. We're going to talk KU basketball. Michael Swain joins us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll talk a little K-State hoops. We got a great show planned for you today. We're really glad you're along here for 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started, 3:35 here on 580 Sports Talk. I asked you, the listener, what is the biggest reason the Chiefs find themselves at 5-5? Maybe you are a follow-the-numbers guy like I typically am, and you're not concerned. You are projecting the same level of confidence that it seems like the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes themselves are projecting, that they still believe in-house that they're going to be just fine, they're going to get things fixed. And Andy Reid always says that. After every loss, he gets behind the podium, says, starts with me, we're going to get that fixed. Patrick Mahomes, he slipped a couple of times after the Denver game. There were a couple times he had to double back. Jesse Newell picked up on this in his post-game article at The Athletic that there were a couple of instances where Patrick Mahomes started an answer with "we" and then corrected himself to "I," which usually Patrick Mahomes really good at eating stuff, if you will. I mean a different S word that I can't say on the radio. But if you're the quarterback, you got to eat stuff, right? When your team loses, you got to stand behind the podium and you got to take the heat and you got to eat all that stuff. And your teammates, if they've got your back, will come to your defense like in Seattle. It went viral after they lost to the Rams because Sam Darnold threw 4 picks, and Darnold went to the podium and he ate stuff and deserved to. And then his teammates, most notably linebacker Ernest Jones, got up on the dais and in a very profane response said, in essence, it's not all on him. We've got his back. If you're going to say anything about him, then bleep you. I guess bleep me then. Damn, that kind of hurt my feelings. But you get the idea, right? Like the quarterback's got to stand up there and got to own everything. That's part of the job. And Mahomes gets that. He's not new to this, and he's not unwilling to be the guy. But I do think that was kind of revealing, starting the answer with a "we" before doubling back to the "I." Like, I don't know who is included in the "we." If it's the offensive line, if it's the wide receivers and tight ends, if it's the coaching staff and the game plan, which I kind of think it might be where the frustration is most pointed for Mahomes. But I found that to be really, really interesting. But anyway, I asked you, what do you think is the biggest reason that the Chiefs have struggled to a 5-5 record and sit on the fringes of a playoff spot rather than in their traditional space atop the AFC West? And one answer that I got multiple times in the YouTube live chat was special teams. Both Vance and Mark H. weighing in, saying, believe special teams is a major factor. And look, there's no denying that third phase is so often a factor in close games. And the Chiefs have been so poor in close games. And there have been negative plays by the special teams, both in coverage or the kicking game or the return game, in every one of their losses this year that you can point to and say, well, if that had been different, like Harrison Butker kicking the ball out of bounds at the end of the Jacksonville game, and then the holding penalty on the return at the end of the Jacksonville game that really gave the Chiefs no chance to drive all the way down the field and try and answer with a game-tying field goal. The blocked extra point and the long punt return allowed to Marvin Mims on the second drive of the game for the Broncos that set them up for an easy field goal, even though they went 3 and out. Those were big moments in a game that ended up being decided by 3. Also, didn't end up costing them, but Butker had another illegal procedure on a kickoff in that game. So, yeah, I think you look at special teams this year and you can point a pretty big finger in that direction because, again, the losses that the Chiefs have had this year, it's not like they're going out and getting walked all over and they can't move the ball or they can't score or they can't get a stop. Like, they haven't had a game where nothing works. And they just get dump trucked by a team that is way, way ahead of them. They lost by a touchdown to the Chargers. They lost by a field goal to the Eagles. They lost by a field goal to the Jaguars. They lost by a touchdown to the Bills. And they lost by a field goal to the Broncos. Like, they're there in those games that they lose. And in the games that they've won convincingly, right? They've won in blowout fashion. They've blown out good teams. They beat Detroit by 13. They crushed Baltimore. Even before all the injuries hit in the second half, they were crushing Baltimore. So those are the things that suggest, okay, their highs are really high. Their lows aren't that low. Things will stabilize. And over the long run, you would expect this team to be really just fine. But you're on a long run, right? You're over half done with the season. You've got 7 games left. You've already blown the division. And you've got to catch 2 teams that already have wins over you. So you don't have the runway. This isn't baseball where, you're through May and you've got a positive run differential, but you're 3 games under 500. Oh, that'll level itself out. You'll play better. You got 162. You got 90 games left. You guys will be fine. It's not how football works, which is why I'm surprised at what I feel is a lack of urgency coming from the Chiefs camp. Some other answers to the question, what's been the biggest reason for the Chiefs' struggles this year? From the 785, O-line, awful. Juwan Taylor, yeah, the penalties, pretty bad. I think other than that, the Chiefs' offensive line's actually been much improved from last year. I don't feel like the offensive line felt like an impediment, and in the end, it was the impediment in Super Bowl 59. I don't feel that way about this offensive line. They certainly, in the losses, the last two losses, have not been good. I think that is fair to point to them specifically against Buffalo and the Broncos, even though I will give Josh Simmons this credit, which I didn't realize until I did more digging into the game, that, Simmons had to get some help. So this stat is certainly affected by all the chip help he got from running backs and tight ends, but he only allowed one quick pressure against Denver. And he's going up against an all-pro caliber rusher in Nick Bonito or a Pro Bowl caliber rusher in Jonathan Cooper. And he only allowed one quick pressure, a pressure inside 2.5 seconds. For not having played in a month, that wasn't bad. Like, I'm still very, very bullish on Josh Simmons. I think there has been more good than bad for Kingsley, even though I didn't think Sunday was his best game and then he got concussed. The center and the right guard are who they've been and played at that level. Right tackle remains a pretty big sticking point. Pretty big sticking point there. Other answers. JB's worried about the Chiefs' road record, knowing that the Chiefs will have to go and play playoff games on the road. So that's interesting, right? Like, they lost at Jacksonville, and they lost at Buffalo, and they lost at Denver. So 3 of their 5 losses have been true road games. And typically, this has been a team that has thrived on going into hostile environments and shutting them down, shutting them up. But again, it would be one thing if they were coming out and getting paved on the road, which, if you want to say they got the Buffalo game was an exception, that was a game where they truly were dominated in the way that the final score didn't suggest, I'd listen to that argument. I watched it from 30 feet away on a screen at an airport bar. I may have missed some things in that one. I'll concede that point. But that is certainly something to watch, something to monitor. The next big road test for the Chiefs, Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. That'll be a cranked up crowd. Always is for Thanksgiving. Those tryptophan naps don't quite hit for the football crowds. So, yeah, I think that does. I think that's an interesting point, JB, and I think that bears watching. Chris in the YouTube comments asks, are the Chiefs getting too predictable? We're going to expand on this later on in the show, Chris, so I'm glad you brought it up, and I hope that you'll continue to listen, because I'm going to give you a partial answer now. But I do think that there is an element of the Chiefs' offense that has kind of stopped working as well as it used to. And the reason I kind of think that is because I have the numbers to back that up. I'm going to reference Ben Solak's article at ESPN.com that he wrote today here in the next segment. But he pointed out that the Chiefs throws behind the line of scrimmage, when screen passes, essentially, or swing passes, bubble screen, tunnel screen, halfback swings, passes that are thrown behind the line of scrimmage by Patrick Mahomes. No quarterback has done it more often than Mahomes this year, but they are below average when it comes to generating explosive plays, and they are just above average in yards per play on those throws behind the line of scrimmage. So that magic, I mean, we think about Andy Reid in the screen game, and that magic's in there like it used to be. And I think teams are a little bit ready for it. I do think there are elements of the Chiefs offense that feel a little bit stale, Chris. I do think you are onto something there. And like I said, I'm going to expand on that in a little bit. Christopher's going intangible on us. He says, is it anything more than karmic payback for winning so many games because of weird circumstances last year? This is where I think you guys should go give Barnwell's article at ESPN.com a read, because he does point out that last year, when the Chiefs were winning all those games, it wasn't like they were winning them the same way over and over again. It wasn't, oh, well, Mahomes will lead them down the field and they'll score at the end. Or, well, they'll get a big defensive stop and that'll be why they win. No, one week it would be Mahomes, and then the next week the defense would need to bail out Mahomes. And then the week after that, the special teams would need to bail out a drive that sputtered out. Then the week after that, you need a blocked field goal. Then the week after that, you need the snap to hit the quarterback's knee before the other team can try a winning field goal. It was not really a thing that the Chiefs hung their hat on in those close games last year. So maybe that was more about luck than it was about anything intuitive to the Chiefs. Maybe. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's a thesis that Barnwell posits in his article. Again, I encourage everyone to read it. I might even throw the link in the YouTube comments for you guys who are watching on YouTube. But we got to take a break. I'm going to come back with some stats on the Chiefs running game. It's worse than you think. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. $349 on 580 Sports Talk. So we know the Chiefs running game is not good. That's not a surprise. There have been moments where it has not been bad necessarily. There were even moments against a very good Denver defense where Kareem Hunt was able to find some space and deliver some good runs into the middle of that Bronco defense. But scoring drives in the NFL are built on explosive plays. You got to be explosive to move the ball consistently. The Chiefs' explosive play rate on run plays this year, and an explosive run play for these purposes is defined as a run of 12 or more yards. So the percentage of runs for the Kansas City Chiefs this season that have gained 12 or more yards, 5%, 5.0. That is tied for 31st with the Tennessee Titans, which means it's the worst in football. You don't want to be tied with the Titans in anything. 5% of the Chiefs' running plays have been explosive. And if you limit the scope just to the running backs, so take out jet sweeps, take out Mahomes scrambles, and just turning and handing off to the running backs, the explosive plays percentage on those plays 2.6%. 194 handoffs this year. 5 of them have gained more than 12 yards. 5! If that number holds, it will be the worst explosive rush rate on running back carries for an offense this century. Do you know who has the other 2 worst explosive play rates for running back carries this century? Last year's Chiefs and the 2007 Chiefs, which, if you'll recall, was the year after the Chiefs ran Larry Johnson into the ground and he was just a desiccated husk of himself the next year. That's grim, and it's been a problem for 2 years. Andy Reid is never going to be the coach that makes you respect it. That's just never going to be who he is. He is never changing those stripes. And so opposing teams don't respect it. So if you're not going to lean on the running game, or you're not going to have the other team respect the running game, you don't have a running game. You don't. You are a one-dimensional offense. Even if you hand the ball off 15, 20 times, you are still functionally a one-dimensional offensive team. And even if that one dimension is Patrick Mahomes throwing the football to a talented cast of wide receivers, well, to go back to the listener who asked the question, Christopher, or Chris, rather, if they were getting too predictable, yeah, they are in that regard, for sure. And it makes you wish the Chiefs would have met the Jets' asking price for Breece Hall, because that would have at least been an infusion of talent into the running back room. They just, like, Isaiah Pacheco's in and out of the lineup, doesn't have the explosion he used to have, and Kareem Hunt is in his 30s. He's a running back in his 30s. He is a short yardage weapon. We know what he is. He's a nice part to have on hand. You can't build the whole plane out of that. So, yeah, it's grim, and it's festered for 2 years. And I know that this past offseason, and Ben Solak writes as much in his mailbag column today at ESPN, this past season, really the last 2, was about we're going to stretch the field. We're going to bring the deep ball back. We're going to go down the field, expand the field vertically, as an offense. They dedicated the last 2 off seasons to getting back to that for the Chiefs offense. How about next year, go get a damn running back? It hasn't been that hard to find running backs who can give you some juice. Not as hard anyway as the Chiefs have made it look. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up the first hour of 580 Sports Talk. We're with you until 6 tonight. Then we'll hand it off to the K-State Sports Network from Learfield. K-State women's basketball tonight. Midi-Cats taking on Troy at Bramlage Coliseum. 6:30 tip-off, 6 o'clock pregame coverage. Again, that's right here on 580 WIBW. You know, I don't really get behind the idea that Brett Veach ought to be criticized a whole lot for the job he's done as the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, and the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the rings that he's done, by and large. Pretty good job. But it is remarkable when you really think about it that the Chiefs have been down this bad at running back for the last 2 seasons, especially as the league starts to swing back, not towards primarily running the football, but being able to run the football more effectively against lighter boxes and lighter players in the box that get overwhelmed by heavier fronts. And again, the Chiefs have been able to churn out successful runs because of the strength of their offensive line, but explosiveness in the running game is just not there. And I can't imagine they go another offseason without addressing that. Maybe they add Breece Hall as a free agent next winter. Maybe that's how they use their first-round pick, or they use a top 100 pick on a running back. People will probably be skittish about the Chiefs using a first-rounder on a running back. So last time they did that, it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That didn't work out great, but they got to do something. It's very clear. They need high-end talent at running back, and they haven't had that now for 2 years, and it's starting to cost them. Coming up in the next hour, we're talking college hoops, Champions Classic, and K-State's win last night. And Michael Swain joins me for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on a Tuesday. My name is Dan Lucero. So glad to be with you on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of the 580 Sports Talk community. Want to hear from you in the live chat on our YouTube stream. If you watch the show live from 3 to 6 Central every day on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, there's a live chat feature that exists that allow you to offer your own running commentary on the show, ask questions, interact with other people who share at least one interest with you, that being listening to 580 Sports Talk. And your stuff, if it's good, gets read on the show. And I see all of it. So it's a fun way to interact and then, like I said, grow the 580 Sports Talk community. So if you've never checked out the YouTube before, today's a great day to do it. Slam that subscribe button. You don't have to slam it. You just click it. Doesn't cost you anything either way. Drive that subscriber number up, because when we get to 900 total subscribers, you will get 580 Sports Talk Idol on an edition of the show. Myself and Brendan Dorzinski and Spencer Dupuis will all sing for you. We'll make a competition out of it. We'll get some judges in here. We'll have a good time with it. But we got to get to 900 subscribers first. So if you're not subscribed, get it. Help get us there today. Go subscribe. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Speaking of the rest of the crew, Brendan's off today. Spencer will be in for What Is Wrong With You here in a little while. We will have another round of What Is Wrong With You coming up. Next week, we'll do... Trying to think. We will obviously have a short week because it is Thanksgiving next week. So no show Thursday. The Chiefs will be playing anyway. And no show Friday. We'll be crowning, I believe, a weekly champion on a monthly champion for November on Wednesday. We'll do a daily winner for Monday, and that winner will go straight into the semifinals. With the winners from the previous 3 weeks. So that's how we'll crown our November champion. And then our field will almost be full for the year-end What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Champions. We've got 10 of our finalists. We got 2 more to crown, and we're going to give you 2 more stories here in just a little bit. Also, bottom of this hour, Michael Swain of Fog.net is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We will talk to Michael about the final 2 games of KU's football season coming up. Their trip to Ames, take on Iowa State this Saturday. But we'll also talk to Michael about the Champions Classic tonight. KU and Duke, they're the late game again. Has KU ever been? And it feels like they are never the early game. And I know that it ideally rotates. And now that I'm thinking about it, they were the early game last year. But I can almost never remember them being like the first game of the night at the Champions Classic. It always feels like they're the last game. And so, of course, that game never tips off on time. It's supposed to tip off at 8. Yeah, right. They got to do the whole between game show. They got to do college football playoff rankings tonight. Great synergy there by ESPN. You got a lot of people that really care about college football watching some November college hoops. I can tell you that. And so that game won't tip off until close to like 8:30, 8:45. And KU won't have its best player. No Darryn Peterson tonight. So that's a bummer, but we'll get Michael's thoughts on that coming up. Michael Swain joins us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk college hoops this hour. I watched K-State beat Tulsa last night. I'll get into some thoughts on that, but I wanted to start with the Champions Classic because it is still a headline game in college basketball, a headline night in the non-conference portion of the college basketball season. Anytime you get 4 programs with the pedigree of Kansas, Duke, Kentucky, and Michigan State under the same roof for one night, it's exciting. It just feels less exciting than it used to. It feels like it's a little bit stale. It feels like maybe it could benefit from an infusion of some new blood every couple of years. Like when Tom Izzo finally hangs up the whistle, and I'm not encouraging him to do so. I've never been a great Tom Izzo fan. I think Tom Izzo's reputation comes largely from being a get-along guy with the right people in college basketball media. But he is, I think, maybe not the best ambassador for the sport. Let's just say that. So I've never been a fan. Never been a big Tom Izzo fan. His teams win, obviously. That's a big part of the legacy as well. But like, I'd be okay with swapping out Michigan State every few years. When was the last time you got fired up to watch a Michigan State basketball game? Be honest with yourself. I know they've had NBA players come through that program. I know they've had good teams, Final Four teams even. But be honest with yourself. When was the last time they were a must-see program like Kansas or Duke or Kentucky? They don't walk in those. They don't shop in those aisles. Like, they have always been the one of these things just doesn't belong program in the Champions Classic. So maybe one way to refresh this thing is throw another program in there every couple of years. Give me Gonzaga in the Michigan State spot. And I can hear the jokes. Well, why would they be in an event called the Champions Classic? They've been champions. Man, Michigan State's championships aren't in HD. Let's be honest about that program. They got, Izzo's got one ring, and he's milked the hell out of it his entire career. And maybe rotate somebody else in there. Another blue blood. Get Indiana in there, UCLA, Villanova, somebody else. Maybe multiple somebodies else. Like in a year where Kansas and Duke are supposed to play each other anyway, take them out of the Champions Classic. Put somebody else in there. But I don't know. I think the event, it's 15 years now of the Champions Classic, and I think it gets less and less important every year, and I don't necessarily know what the solve is for that, but I know one thing. Unless Kansas is playing Michigan State, I don't watch the Michigan State game. I can tell you that right now. I have never intentionally, I don't think in my life, sat down on the couch and said, I cannot wait to watch Tom Izzo and the Spartans get rowdy on CBS or whatever network. They don't do that for me like Kentucky and Duke and Kansas. Never have. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe I'm not being fair to the Big Ten. You can check me if you feel like I'm being mean to the Big Ten. But it's Duke and Kansas in the late game tonight, and KU will not have Darryn Peterson. That was assumed but confirmed in multiple spaces earlier today. Obviously, that impacts the expectation for the competitiveness of tonight's game. Checking in with our friends at Prairie Band Sportsbook, Duke is a 10.5-point favorite. I've seen that line get as high as 12 today. It is mostly sat at 11. It's just come down to 10.5. So pick the line you like if you're betting on the Jayhawks tonight. But no, Darryn Peterson is a bummer. And look, I think Kansas is probably doing the right thing. If he's got a tender hamstring, this is not the game to try to push through it. The game where you got to push through it is when you got to go play BYU, or you got the Sunflower Showdown, or you play Houston, or you play Iowa State. The goal for this program has never been to win the Champions Classic. The goal is to win a conference. The goal is to win a natty. You don't do that if Darryn Peterson's laid up for 6 to 8 weeks with a torn hamstring or longer. You got to really, really be careful with this thing, especially with a player who is as explosive as Peterson and who KU is as dependent on as they are Darryn Peterson. So I think KU's handling this the right way. It doesn't make it any less disappointing that we won't get to see him tonight, and it doesn't make it any less worrisome that he will now have sat out more games than he has played. And really, we've only gotten 3 halves from Darryn Peterson in the first 5 games of this season for the Kansas Jayhawks. And that's a drag because he's so good at basketball. Like, just from the elemental standpoint of, I like to watch basketball. I like to watch good players play basketball well. And Darryn Peterson is as talented a practitioner of the art of basketball as we are going to see on our televisions throughout this college basketball season. So anytime we are robbed, for whatever reason, of the chance to see Peterson, it stinks. But it stinks for Kansas in the immediate future, which is how Bill Self described the length of absence he expected for Peterson, because without Peterson, who is supposed to put the ball in the basket against really good teams? And we saw that Flory Badunga could put the ball into the basket against Princeton. And Trey White had 18 points in that game. And Cole Rosario had 16 against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Like, all these other guys are on scholarship. But Peterson's supposed to be the connective thread. Without Peterson, the roster doesn't make as much sense. Without Peterson, it's a pack of sheep in search of a shepherd. Maybe that analogy comes off as unflattering to the talents of the remaining Jayhawks, and I don't mean for it to be. It's just the first thing that popped into my head. Just missing that the leader, the binding agent, if you will. Maybe that's a better way to put it. DP's the binding agent that makes the roster fit together when he's distributing and driving and doing the things that he can do, because then you're less reliant on offense from the other sources. And without him, especially against a team like Duke, who's oozing talent. Like, let's be honest. Duke's got more high-end guys. There are more future NBA guys on Duke's roster than there are on Kansas's roster. And that's not the be-all, end-all, but it's a pretty good indicator most of the time as to how a game is going to go. So I do expect Duke to win, and I don't know that I expect it to be close. Two reasons I think it could be. Two reasons I think it could be competitive tonight. Number one, I think there is a level of play from Melvin Council that we have not seen yet. And there is a level of play from Elmarco Jackson that we have yet to see. If both of them can access something like the best version of themselves, I think that helps KU a lot. I think that helps them. I think that helps KU keep it competitive. Those are, to me, the two most important guys. You probably throw Rosario in that pile as well, because they're going to need scoring from him. They're going to need scoring from the starters. And outside of Badunga in the post, with which, again, he is not creating his own offense, somebody's going to have to create for him, and somebody's going to have to create for themselves. And Council's got the best chance, I think, in Jackson coming off the bench, of being able to do that. So those are the most important guys. But again, they're all on scholarship. They all got that Kansas uniform for a reason. They can get to a high level. They got a chance to keep it close tonight. The other thing that I believe to be true about the Kansas-Duke matchup is that Kansas has a significant coaching advantage. And I believe that to be true a lot of nights that Kansas takes the floor, because I think Bill Self is one of the absolute best to ever do it. I think Jon Scheyer is improving as a coach. I do not think he is the kind of in-game coach, game plan coach that Bill Self is. He is not on Bill Self's level. And I think that was proven last year when Kansas beat Duke in Vegas. You remember what happened in that game? Hunter Dickinson got ejected with a lot of game left in the second half. And KU found a way anyway, because Bill Self makes adjustments. And I don't think that Jon Scheyer is as good an in-game coach as Bill Self is. So if the game is close, KU catches a heater from three and puts some game pressure on Duke a little bit. I do wonder what that would do to such a heavily favored Duke squad. And I do think and do trust that Self can push the right buttons, pull the right strings, and have his team be as competitive as it's possible to be without their star tonight. So those are the two things I'd cling to if I were a Jayhawk fan hoping to see a win. But some of the Jayhawk fans that have been in the YouTube comments and elsewhere have already resigned themselves to a certain fate tonight. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't think KU wins this game. I think Duke probably covers that 10.5, 11 number. But if it's close, like you tell me tie game up for grabs, 4 minutes left, Bill Self will take his 5 and beat yours, and then he'll take your 5 and beat his. So that's what I'll be interested to see if that happens tonight. K-State beat Tulsa 84-83 last night. And if you've been following along with the Wildcat so far this year, but you didn't see the game last night, your first reaction, you probably went right to that 83 in Tulsa's scoring column and said, oh my goodness, K-State, they can't guard. They gave up 83 points to a not real good American team. The defense is still a mess. But context matters. Tulsa came in averaging 90 points a game, so they were held below their season average. They play high possession games. And you know what? K-State does too. And you know what happens when there are more possessions in games? There are more points in games. Tulsa got up 66 field goals and 29 free throws last night. That's a lot of shots. K-State shot the ball 68 times and shot 21 free throws. The Cats actually held Tulsa to 41% shooting and 27% from three. If they're able to hold opponents to those numbers throughout the Big 12 schedule, they will be in position to win games. The percentage numbers were good. I thought K-State did a mostly decent job of forcing Tulsa into tough shots. What happened down the stretch as Tulsa made their run and eventually pulled ahead, led by 5 in the final minute, what eventually happened was K-State went to a small lineup. They went to 4 guards because David Castillo right now is playing too well to take off the court. That's one of those good problems. But Nate Johnson has to be out there. PJ Haggerty sure has to be out there. They had Abdi Bashir out there for shooting purposes, and he's got a little bit more length as a wing. And then Kamari McGriff was playing the 5. And I don't think that's a bad 5. I think you can play that 5, and they've got a lot of scoring punch, but it's not real big. And McGriff isn't really a rim protector. And what happened was Tulsa started getting to the rim and getting higher percentage shots. And K-State didn't really have anybody who could lay back and defend the rim. And they're not going to, again, tight game, you got to score. This is a scoring team. They're not going to decide, okay, yeah, we're going to forget about buckets. We're going to play our best defensive 5, although they did ride C.J. Jones a little longer than I thought they would down the stretch. We're gonna stick Darryn Buka out there to be 7-2 and block shots at the rim. No, I think K-State played the right lineup given the context of the game, but it wasn't as good a defensive lineup. And that's why they had the problems they did. I thought that was more about personnel. Again, I'll keep saying it. I think K-State's got good athletes. I think they've got decent size. I think they care. And I think if you have those 3 things, you will not be overwhelmed defensively. I haven't seen this team look overwhelmed defensively. Don't mistake that with me saying I think they're good defensively. They're not yet. They might not be. But I also don't think they're as bad as, they gave up 83 to Tulsa would make it sound like. You know who is good? PJ Haggerty. He had 31 points on 13 field goals last night. 27 of those came in the second half. He has a sense of the moment. He has a calmness about him. He doesn't get too panicked, doesn't get too sped up, doesn't always make the right decision, but doesn't make a bad decision because he's panicking. Like, he's got a calmness to him in those late game situations. You saw it on a play, ironically, where he did dribble into traffic and did lose the ball, but it ping-ponged to McGriff, who then found Haggerty open up the middle with the defense coming down to get him right at the rim, and Haggerty calmly banked that shot up and in for a big K-State basket. He's got that sense of the moment. He's got that sense of calm. I do have to admit, he's got a little bit of grift to his game. He shoots a lot of free throws, and he shoots those free throws because he knows how to draw fouls. And if he's on a team you hate, you call it a grift. But if he's on a team you like, you just say he's savvy and knows how to get to his spots and knows how to draw fouls. However you'd like to say it if you're a K-State fan. But that's your pushback, right? Somebody's going to say, PJ Haggerty's a grifter. Look at all those free throws. No, he's savvy. But he's really, really good. At the end of the day, he's outstanding. He is clearly the best player that Jerome Tang has suited up the last 3 years. Their best player since Keontae Johnson. And he keeps putting up big games like that. He's going to have another look at being an All-American. But I thought the most encouraging thing for K-State, other than the play of Haggerty, who had 31 and 10 rebounds, making him the first Wildcat to have a 30-point, 10-rebound game since Michael Beasley. So it's been a while. I think the most encouraging thing if you're K-State is you won a game where the shots didn't fall. That has not been the case for Kansas State the last couple of years. If the shots weren't falling from deep, they didn't really have the ability to run good enough offense to get easy stuff. And K-State went 5 of 24 from 3 last night. Just couldn't find it. Got some decent looks. Did rush some in the second half. I didn't think their offense was great in the second half, like great. But they survived 5 of 24 from 3 because they scored 46 points in the paint. Because they've got guys who can really finish. Kamari McGriff can really finish. Nate Johnson's good around the rim. Haggerty, obviously. So showing the ability, even against, again, Tulsa's not an NCAA tournament team. They are going to face tougher tests than this. But you have to find ways to win when things don't go your way, when things don't go perfectly. K-State had been 52% from three in their first 3 games going into last night. Then they go 5 of 24. Regression to the mean. Water finding its level. But I think it's a positive thing that you can still win a game when everything doesn't go exactly right. Because I don't think K-State last year was doing that. We'll take a break. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up. We got Michael Swain of Fog.net coming up to further discuss the Champions Classic and KU football, all things Jayhawks on Jayhawk Weekly. That's still to come in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. It is What Is Wrong With You time on 580 Sports Talk. We have 2 new stories today, and joining me for What Is Wrong With You is Spencer Dupuis. Hi, Spencer.
Right on time.
Yeah, you just got into the StreamYard.
You know, I clicked on the website, but I didn't click the second entrance.
Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
We've got 2 new stories today competing against yesterday's champion. Shout out to Paul K in the YouTube comments for his name for this story. The Captain and Coke. The former chief of police in Western Pennsylvania who was caught allegedly trying to sell cocaine and also stole a rifle from the evidence locker at his former police department.
Darn police stories.
Yeah, a lot of police breaking bad lately. Can't figure that one out. Spencer, I'll let you go first today. What do you got?
Yeah, so I actually heard of this story a few weeks back on the app TikTok, right?
Okay.
Where everything goes viral. And first, I heard from one angle. And then because I interacted and viewed the video, I later got this other angle the other day. So I figured I'd make it in my What Is Wrong With You story. DoorDash driver in Oswego, New York, is facing felony charges after police say she recorded a nude customer inside his home and shared the video on social media. Olivia Henderson, 23, made a DoorDash delivery back in October on the 12th to a man's home in the town in New York. Police say while outside the home, she recorded the man while he was partially nude, incapacitated, and unconscious on his couch after drinking alcohol.
So I saw this too, and wasn't her whole thing, I've been sexually harassed?
Well, no, see, we're going to get there. Yeah, so police say Henderson later posted the video online where she quickly gained widespread attention. She is now charged with unlawful surveillance in the second degree and dissemination of an unlawful surveillance image in the first degree. Quote, she recorded him without his consent and then subsequently disseminated those videos, says Oswego Police Department Captain Brian Thompson. When you're making social media posts, take a second to think about what you're putting out in the world. During the investigation, Henderson claimed that she had been sexually assaulted by the customer. However, police determined no sexual assault occurred because the man was lying on his couch naked, which she opened the door to his house. It was later determined. DoorDash said in an October 16th statement on TikTok that Henderson's DoorDash account was deactivated along with that of the customer. Posting a video of a customer in their home and disclosing their personal details publicly is a clear violation of their policies. Read a statement apart. Police say they're continuing to investigate and are working with the Oswego County District Attorney's Office regarding prosecution. She's due back in court on December 4th. Yeah, she opened the door. The door might have been cracked or something. And she opened it and started taking a video of it and claimed she was sexually assaulted by a man sleeping.
So it turns out, being naked in your house, not a crime. Videotaping that man in his house and then disseminating the video, crime.
So the thing I saw more about this. So there's Ring camera footage of her opening the door. She had claimed the door was open when she got there, but like later, Ring camera from the close neighbor was posted of her pushing the door open.
Paul's made a really good ding dong ditch joke in the YouTube comments. You're on fire this week. All right, let's get to my story. Mine is much more simplistic. We're going to Thailand, where Thai Rangers have arrested two men suspected of being part of an international wildlife smuggling network. They were intercepted in a car carrying 81 macaques near the Cambodian border. A macaque is a monkey. And you might have heard it pronounced as macaque. Nope. Macaque. I checked. Thailand is a major transit hub for wildlife smugglers who often sell highly prized endangered creatures on the lucrative black market. A patrol stopped the vehicle Friday afternoon at 3:20 p.m. in the Sa Kaeo province. I'm sure I got that wrong, where troops found the monkeys stuffed into blue net bags. The suspects were arrested. Their vehicle was inspected. They also had meth on them, though no quantities were specified. So, meth and 81 monkeys. What could possibly go wrong in that scenario?
Yeah.
That feels like you're really playing with fire. Like, that's so many monkeys. 81? What do you suppose one macaque goes for on the black market?
I don't know. Like
we've done this
grand.
before. We did a story where a guy tried to buy a monkey on the internet, and it turned out it was a whole scam. He was sending the scammers like gift cards over and over again. He tried to pay for a monkey with gift cards. But I'm going to Google here. What is the price of a macaque? Looks like the average price of popular monkey species, macaques will run you $4,000 to $8,000.
Oh, okay, so not $75,000 like I was thinking.
No, not quite that expensive. No. Maybe if they were rare macaques. But we'll split the difference. Call it $6,000. 81 of them is going to be $486,000. Is that right? Or $48,600?
Wow.
Yeah, $48,600.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a nice profit.
Yeah.
For 81 macaques and some meth. Just out for a drive. Nobody will suspect anything.
It's the meth people.
And it breaks your rule. It breaks your rule, Spencer. Don't do a crime while you're doing another crime.
Yeah.
Don't transport ill-begotten macaques while you're also transporting crystal meth. All right. Who wins today?
I think yours does because exotic animals.
Yeah, we'll go with, I mean, monkeys and meth are just an unbelievable combination to have in a headline. But I don't think that beats.
No,
yeah. I had a second thought there for a moment, but yeah, we'll stay with the police chief who tried to flip pies on the side and broke bad and was moving weight and stealing guns. Yeah, man. Like, law enforcement, we trust these people to serve and protect. He was serving weight. Well, he was serving. Serving blow, allegedly. That'll continue on as our winner on What Is Wrong With You. Thanks for coming by, Spence.
Yep.
Michael Swain joins us next for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. For Jayhawk Weekly, we do it every Tuesday at this time. Michael covers Jayhawk athletics for Fog.net. If you're a VIP subscriber to 580 Sports, not 580 Sports, to 24/7 Sports, which you ought to be, that will get you access to all of Michael's outstanding writing and info on KU Sports. Michael, let's start with this. Does the Champions Classic feel a little bit stale, like it's maybe past its expiration date as an event, or do you feel like there's still some gloss to having these four programs get together once a year early in the college basketball season?
I think it's still got some juice. Well, let me rephrase that. I think three of the teams have some juice still. Not too sure about Michigan State these days, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of years if Tom Izzo gets them back. You know, obviously, I think they've got the number one recruiting class right now, so we'll see how that unfolds. But yeah, I think it's still an event, especially when it's played at, MSG, Chicago. If they could just keep it out of Atlanta, I think it'd be great. Because year in and year out, like whenever they go to Atlanta, it's always like you're in a library. Like it's never a fun environment. But if they were to make it where it just rotates MSG and Chicago year in, year out, just do those two, I think it's one of those that still holds weight, still has juice. Like KU Kentucky, KU Duke, Duke Kentucky, like that. Those games are always going to draw eyeballs. And I think what's changed though is the way scheduling's done. Where nowadays, this is not the first marquee game for either squad,
right?
And I think that's what's really changed now. Is this used to be like, man, it's the first time you're going to see, Darryn Peterson, Cam Boozer, Andrew Wiggins, like blah blah blah. Like the first time you're really going to see those guys in meaningful games. Well, now that's changed. And part of it is because the coaches were pissed that these games were nationally televised and typically, pretty ugly. And so people drew conclusions and made assumptions about a team, and that carried through, through the non-con, but things have changed now. So, long answer to your question, but I still think it holds weight. I think it's one of those where you put in a UConn instead of a Michigan State. I think this could still be a top tier event, but yeah, the feeling of it, I think, has changed just as the scheduling around the sport of college basketball has become broadly just more competitive.
Yeah, I guess that's what I miss about it, is the feeling that this event heralded the start of college basketball season. And it doesn't feel that way anymore. And maybe that's why I feel the way I do about it. That, and like you, I'm tired of watching Michigan State. I don't sit down excited to watch the Michigan State game. I will probably give Michigan State, Kentucky a miss. And that's not fair, but it's how I feel. Anyway, Duke and Kansas is the marquee game at this year's Champions Classic. But speaking of losing luster, no Darryn Peterson for a third straight game for Kansas. Setting aside tonight, specifically tonight for a moment, optimistically speaking, when do you suspect that Darryn Peterson will see the floor again for the Jayhawks?
I would, in my own head, target the UConn game, I think. Because at that point, do some quick math in my head, that's 3 weeks since the play against Carolina. About that. Yeah, I'd say UConn. And that's the thing about it, right, is if you read Bill Self's statement today, he called it a strain. So now we have some actual clarification on what's going on, right? Because that's something that has not been well communicated, right? At first it's cramps, and then it's just tightness, and Self continues to say, it's just tightness. Well, now they're saying it's a strain. So now we can kind of figure out, okay, if you look at hamstring injuries, typically you have a strain, it's 21 days before you're back. So 3 weeks from that game would be about the UConn game. And so that in my head is the one where if this stretches beyond UConn and we're talking about this into Missouri and NC State, then I think for me, some alarm bells are going to go off, just because you need some competitive games with Darryn before the Big 12 play starts. You can't just go run up to Big 12 play without Darryn playing with these guys for, 6 weeks. That's not going to be a recipe for success to hit the ground running and have a successful conference campaign. So in my head right now, UConn's kind of what I think. I think it'd be a terrible decision to try and have Darryn play in the Players Era. 3 games, 3 days, even if you're doing 2 games, the first and last games, that's still 2 games in 3 days. There's just no reason to have a guy on a hamstring injury do that. And then if he's playing in 1 game, the question is, why even risk him for 1 game in the Players Era? So I think you put all that together, and in the back of my head, I think UConn. And that's going to be another marquee game at home, right? And if you can get him back for then, I think that's, an ideal scenario right now.
Michael Swain of Fog.net joining us for the Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Tuesday at this time. Michael joining us on the Floating Place Wine and Spirits hotline. All right, short term, for the sake of the matchup tonight against Duke, no Darryn Peterson. There's no replacing what he does, what he can be. You have to recreate all the production in the aggregate, as they said in Moneyball. That being said, who is or who are the most important Jayhawks tonight in this particular matchup that have to give them something beyond probably what they've shown to date to give KU a chance in this game where they're a double-digit underdog?
Yeah, I think you look at, Melvin Council's got to have a good game. Your point guard can't, not just be a non-factor offensively. And I think that's been the case so far this year, where Melvin has really struggled to score. And there have been times, right, where, you look at it and, man, he's able to get downhill, but just the ball's not going in the basket efficiently. So you need him to play well. I think this is going to be a huge game for Bryson Tiller. There's a good chance he's guarding Cam Boozer, and it's going to be forgotten. But Bryson maybe wasn't in the top tier of this class, but, there was a point in time where he was in the top 10 of this super talented freshman class. And the injuries obviously impacted him, but this is a game for him tonight where it's hey man, you want to go show that you still got that talent in you? Go compete with Boozer. Go try and limit him. Go show him what you can do offensively. I think this is a huge game for Bryson Tiller to show the talent he is. And because of the injuries, because of the fact that he enrolled early and just redshirted, I think people forget the talent that he has, and he's shown it, right, when he's been on the floor so far this year. So I think he's got to have a big game. And then you need some shooting, right? This is a game where if KU's going to stay in it, I think you're going to need a guy to go crazy from three. And that comes down to Cole Rosario, right? Because I don't think Jaden Dawson's shown it just yet that he can do it. So you need Cole Rosario to play well in addition to that. So those are kind of the three guys I'm looking for, just because in the back of my head, I think Flory should be pretty consistent, but you're not expecting Flory to go for 25. I think Trey White's going to be consistent again, but you need some of those players that maybe haven't performed at their ceiling to perform at their ceiling tonight. And those are some of the guys I'll be watching.
Is Boozer the worst matchup for KU on the Duke roster, or is it somebody else that you think could give him the most grief tonight?
Yeah, I think he probably is, and that's why I think you'll see KU probably start big with Tiller at the 4. It's just to try and match up with them. Like, you look across the board, and obviously their center's super talented, good defensive player, but like Flory should be able to hold the zone, and this would be a really good chance for Flory to show what he can do. And look, if he struggles in this game, all of a sudden you're wondering, like, man, when you play elite centers, is Flory just gonna not show up or really have struggles? Because if so, then you got some big concerns about him for the rest of the year. So, and then you look at the wing, right? If you got Trey White playing the 3 against Dame Sarr, like, I think that's a perfectly fine matchup for Trey. And then the 2 guard spots, it's nothing crazy for Duke. Yeah, I think you're looking at a guy that, along with Darryn, is considered like one of the top 3 guys in this freshman class and one of the top 3 prospects for the NBA draft next year. Like, yeah, that's going to be a tough matchup for KU. So I'm really fascinated to see how it plays out, because Boozer, he can do a lot, and he can hurt you in a lot of different ways. So I'm really interested to see how KU handles it.
Bit of a thought exercise here to wrap up this part of the conversation. If you are writing a KU beats Duke story tonight after the game at the Champions Classic, what's your lead? What do you think will be the main reason you're writing that story and your lead for how KU did it?
KU shows it can be an execution team. I think this is a game where KU's probably going to try and slow down the pace, minimize possessions, and just become an execution team. And look, if they do that, all of a sudden you're feeling pretty good about things, because I think that's what KU's got to be, even with Darryn healthy, right? KU's not going to be a team, I don't think, that's going to go out there and try to score 80 points. I think it's a team that's going to try and beat teams to, 65. So if you can go out tonight and execute against a Duke team that's as talented as it is and can pose as many issues as it is, that'd be a huge thing. And so I think that's going to be the biggest key for KU, because at the end of the day, defensively, like, KU's going to be solid. With Darryn, they have the chance to be elite. And it's going to come down to the offensive end of the floor. And again, if KU can execute, all of a sudden you're talking about being able to score points consistently, being able to get different players going, and that's going to be a huge recipe for success in this game.
Michael Swain joining us here on 580 Sports Talk for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael covers KU athletics for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Let's shift gears to football. KU in Ames on Saturday, taking on an Iowa State team that has been injury ravaged this season. And as a result, they look beatable. This looks like the more favorable of the 2 matchups for KU the rest of the way to try and get that 6th win. Where do you think KU might find their biggest advantage against the Cyclones?
Yeah, I think it's got to be through the air. Iowa State has really struggled to throw the football, and obviously KU struggled to stop teams from throwing the football at times this year. And then Iowa State secondary is just super banged up, really banged up. And so it's going to be one of those where, Jalen's going to have a really good game. And it's so funny because you can look at Jalen's career, and this is, Utah, if you didn't watch them against Baylor, like, they are in the top echelon of this league, and KU's going to really struggle against them, I think. So this is a chance, right, for KU to get bowl eligible. And so it's going to come down to, I think, Jalen, can he get back to having, I think, the type of games he was having early in the year, where it's just no mistakes, it's clean football, making good reads at crucial times in the game. And if he can do it, I think KU's going to be able to put up points against Iowa State, and KU can be able to get out of that second half drought where they just seem to struggle to score touchdowns against competent teams. And so KU's going to have to throw the football. Like, Iowa State, it's their weakness right now, and that's when it's going to come down to. Can KU throw the football? And can KU force Iowa State to be a running team? Because when KU can force teams to be one-dimensional, the defense can be fine. It's when the teams can hurt you multiple ways when things really unravel.
Rocco Becht has not put up spectacular numbers this season, but when it gets down to winning time, he still seems to be the quarterback that finds a way to make it work in a way that is really rare. How do the Jayhawks limit his impact on this game, and what are they going to have to be most in tune with as far as making sure Beck doesn't have an outsized impact on the result?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of what he's done this year is rely on his tight ends. Bramer is really good, number 18. And DK McDonald today called him the best tight end of the conference. I'm not certainly sure about that, but yeah, he's talented. I think where you've seen some struggles for Rocco is just the consistency, throwing the ball down the field. And so this is a game where you can find a way to limit the tight end usage. Like all of a sudden you're asking, the wide receivers and Rocco to really connect consistently down the field. And so, yeah, he's been a gamer, and he might even be playing through some injury right now. But it's one of those where if you can really force him to be a deep passing quarterback, I just don't know if right now the processing is there. If you look at some of the interceptions he's thrown lately, some of them have been some pretty poor decisions. And so if KU can really get him in that spot where he feels pressure and has to make decisions quickly, I think that's where you're going to maybe have some success against him.
Read all about it. KU tonight at the Champions Classic, Saturday in Ames against Iowa State on the gridiron, all over at fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network with Michael Swain. If you're a VIP subscriber, and you should be, to 24/7 Sports, you'll get all of Michael's outstanding writing and inside information. And he joins us every Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, enjoy the games this week. We'll do it again next week.
Awesome. Sounds great. Talk to you next week.
That is Michael Swain. We'll take one more time out this hour, come back and wrap up the 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk after this. .455, wrapping up this edition of, or hour number 2 of this edition of 580 Sports Talk. I was trying to sneak out of here an hour early, see if nobody would notice. We got one more hour to hang out together, though, and I'm looking forward to it. We've got 580 Sports Talk headlines to get to in the next hour. We're going to talk a little bit more about a question that Spencer posed on the show yesterday. We had a commenter in the YouTube chat on our 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel during today's show asked the question, do the Chiefs feel stale, too predictable on offense right now? And I think there are a lot of different ways to answer that question. I think that I would lean to the short answer being yes. Like just as far as if it's a yes or no question, I would lean yes with obviously some caveats and a longer answer. But there are some things that I don't believe should still be part of the offense, and some things that are a big part of the offense, two things in particular that don't really work. And when you're 10 games in, you got to junk the stuff that doesn't work and lean into the stuff that does. But, the funny thing about it is this. We look at the Chiefs offense, we think, man, they're stuck in the mud. They feel a little bit stale. Like, I do feel that watching them. They are scoring on a higher percentage of their drives this season than they did either of the last 3 years in which they went to the Super Bowl. So they're scoring points more often when they have the ball, a higher percentage of scoring drives. They scored on 40% of their drives against the Broncos, which only 3 other offenses have managed to do against that elite defense this season, and they did it on the road. So it ain't broken, but I also don't believe that the Chiefs can afford to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It does need to get better, because it needs to get better to protect a defense that has not played to the standard of the last couple of years. And that's maybe a whole other topic for a whole other day. We still got 3 more days left in this week before we get to the Colts game. So there's still a lot of meat on the bone. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, because it's just me today, instead of Random Question Tuesday, I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything. So drop in with your questions. Get me your questions, sports related, non-sports related, whatever. I'll answer it all. Text them to 785-272-9429. You can also message them in the live chat, again, on the YouTube channel 580 Sports Talk. That's all coming up on the final hour of the show on WIBW. Let's get it. Hour number 3 of 580 Sports Talk. Final hour on this Tuesday evening. My name is Dan Lucero, solo dolo the rest of the way. So thanks so much for spending your time with me here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our streaming video channels. To watch our streaming video from in the studio on our Facebook page, WIBW News, or on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. So however you're consuming the show today, or whenever you're consuming the show, maybe you're catching it after the live. Maybe you work 3 to 6, can't catch it live, want to catch up, want to hear the Michael Swain conversation, or catch what is wrong with you, or you want to go back at 8 o'clock, you listen to the show and you drive home, but you want to come back at 8 o'clock. So I wonder what kind of fit Dan was getting off today. You can check out the video, however or whenever that you catch the show. Thanks for being a part of the audience here on 580 Sports Talk. For the record today, it is a throwback Oakland A's cap and an University of Oregon pullover. I've always been a big fan of the duck mascot, and my son can identify a duck visually now. And so I put this pullover on this morning, and he was pointing at the duck on my pullover and saying, in, the muffled, kind of garbled way that a 17-month-old says most things, duck. He can't quack yet. He makes some other animal sounds. He's got neigh down. He's getting moo. There's a little bit of bleed over, some confusion. He sometimes thinks cows neigh, but we're getting there. We're getting better at the distinction between horses and cows. So he's the pig, he's got pig sound down. Doesn't have pig down, but he has the oink down. You go, he'll make a pig sound for you. He's learning. One of the things we do, this is a washed parenting story. Usually I would save these for, we're going to do some Ask Me Anything with me later on this hour. So you can ask me questions in the live chat on YouTube, on Facebook, WIBW News, in the comments, or on the text line 785-272-9429. But before I married my wife, we were engaged to be married. She got me as a gift one of those Google speakers, one of those substantial ones, not like the little Google Dots. I had one of those. She bought me one of the more substantial Google speakers where you can ask it. You can say, "Hey Google," and you can tell it, like I would tell it I want to hear a band or a song or an album, and then I'd sit in my apartment or sit in the basement when I moved in with my wife after we got married. And it would play the song or the album or whatever, and I'd sit and, play video games or whatever and enjoy some music. And now I only use that speaker to make animal sounds for my son. That is what he wants to do. We will be in the basement. He will walk over to the speaker. He'll point to it. And so then I will ask it, "Hey, Google, what sound does a lion make? What sound does a frog make? What sound?" I actually kind of learned. I didn't realize zebras made sounds like a donkey makes. I didn't realize they were akin to donkeys in terms of the noise they make. So it's been a fact-finding mission for me too. But one morning, we were down there in the base before I took him to daycare, and he pointed at the speaker, and I swear to you, he said, "Do rawr," like he wanted to hear a roaring sound from the speaker, and it was adorable. But that's what I use that for now. Like, I don't sit down there and say, "Hey, play Queens of the Stone Age while I play this video game." Nah, that's not what it's used for anymore. It's used to make dog and cat and farm animal sounds. Anyway, the joys of parenthood, right? Anyhow, coming up here in this 5 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk, we got some headlines to get into. We're going to get further into answering that question. Has the Chiefs offense gone stale? I think there are elements of the Chiefs offense that are stale. 2 in particular. And we're going to talk through those. And we'll do Ask Me Anything. Like I said, we'll take some time and I'll answer your questions. You guys always ask good questions, whether it's on the live chat on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk, or whether it's on the text line, 785-272-9429. You guys always ask really good, really thoughtful questions. And so it's fun to do. And this being the second straight Tuesday where it's just been me and Random Question Tuesday doesn't really work when the host is solo, I'll let you guys ask me the random questions. And maybe I'll throw one out to you for you all to answer on the text line or in the YouTube comments as well. So keep those questions coming, and I'll answer them later on in the hour. Again, 785-272-9429, the text line, and the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Well, let's start with some headlines, shall we? Let's get into those. We're going to start, keep it real local, talk a little Washburn-Ichabod athletics. Washburn had 10 players on the All-MIAA football team that was announced today after the conclusion of Coach Zach Watkins' first year on the Washburn bench. One first-team performer, defensive back Campbell Haverkamp, the former Centralia High standout, 76 tackles, 11.5 tackles for a loss, led the team, and also led the team with 5.5 sacks, 4 interceptions, and 4 fumble recoveries. A stat sheet stuffing senior season for the safety, Campbell Haverkamp. Second team defensive honors in the RLMIAA team for sophomore linebacker J.C. Heim, former Washburn Rural Junior Blues. He led the MIAA in tackles and was a second-team all-conference linebacker. Make that make sense. 142 tackles. That didn't just lead the MIAA. That was second in the country. He also had 7 tackles for a loss, an INT, a fumble recovery, and 2 forced fumbles. Second team, all MIAA, the tackle leader in the conference. Make it make sense. Jake Zeller, former Holton High standout. Second team, all MIAA punter. He was second in the league in punting average. Third team, all MIAA at wide receiver, Chase Allen Jackman caught 7 touchdown passes, which was tied for second in the MIAA despite missing the final 3 games of the season. Among those who earned honorable mention honors were running back Kai Thomas, tight end Henry Mormon, offensive lineman Jacoby Harmon, offensive lineman Nick Hogan, linebacker L.J. Minner Jr., and defensive back Jordan Finnessy. Those are your all MIAA football players for Washburn. If you missed it on Saturday, they ended their season on a high note with a come-from-behind win at Missouri Southern, scored with about 4.5 minutes to go, take a 29-24 lead, and then held in the red zone on the Lions' final drive of the game. And hopefully that's a momentum builder into next season. It was an often frustrating first year under the new head coach, Zach Watkins, a 3-8 final record, but it was a very young team. It was a team that was really hit by injury in the second half of the season, which really hurt it. A lot of close losses again. Washburn's good enough to play close games with good teams. Just have to get over that hump and start beating those good teams. And I think it's coming. The investment in the program is there. I'm a believer in Zach Watkins, and I'm bullish on the program's future. But this year was a tough one. There's no question. 3-8, it felt like they left some meat on the bone. But congratulations to those 10 players who were named to the All-MIAA team. And, of course, tomorrow, the renovated Lee Arena reopens for business. I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff from local news or local reporters on social media. Our guy, Rick Peterson, Pistol, had some pictures on social media over at topsports.news earlier today. It is awesome. You almost wouldn't even recognize it compared to what Lee Arena looked like before the renovation. It looks right now like a Division I caliber arena for like a mid-major or small school Division I. There are Division I programs who do not have nice an arena and do not have the home court advantage and the home crowd presence that Washburn has. They're going to reopen the joint tomorrow night when Washburn plays Rockhurst. Of course, you'll be able to hear it if you can't get out to Lee Arena on our sister station, home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9. Get to our next headline. This is more rumor than headline at this point, but I felt it was worth bringing up in headlines today. On3 reported earlier today that Arizona State star quarterback Sam Leavitt is doubtful to return to the Arizona State program next year, not because he's declaring for the NFL draft or because the injury that cost him most of this season is going to end his football career. No, the reporting from On3 is that Levitt's camp. This is the vocabulary used in the post on X. Levitt's camp is actively shopping the talented passer at a high level. Now, Levitt's brother denied the report on Instagram. He posted a screenshot of a text conversation between him and On3's Pete Nakos, where, and I'm paraphrasing here, Nakos told Levitt's brother they were running with that story, and Levitt's brother responded, "That's not where this is right now," which is not a denial necessarily, but very possible that there is perhaps on the Levitt end a desire to remain at Arizona State if certain NIL-related needs are met. This is the question that I have about Arizona State and their athletic success. How much want-to is there in Tempe? Because that should be a pretty good spot to recruit to. I don't know if you've been to Tempe. I don't know if you're aware of the reputation of Arizona State University. And to my knowledge, this is still the reputation of Arizona State University. And to put it in a radio and family-friendly way, it is a school at which an 18 to 22-year-old male can enjoy some scenery. Okay? That's the reputation. But beyond being crawling with hotties, the thing about Arizona State is great weather, good location, you're near a major city. I've always felt like that was a bit of a sleeping giant of an athletic program, and I'm not alone in this. But the level of investment, how much are they willing to invest in success at Arizona State? Because that is the question, especially if there are going to be ways to circumvent the House settlement and continue to break off big NIL deals and make sure that college football players or college basketball players are well compensated to play at certain institutions. I don't know who the money man is at Arizona State. I don't know who the sugar daddy is there. I don't know if they got a Cody Campbell, right? Or even a David Booth. But where is the level of want-to for Arizona State? Because it is going to be tested on the gridiron this offseason. Because as much as Kenny Dillingham has said, I'm not going anywhere, and he's an Arizona State alum, somebody is going to make him a substantial offer if Arizona State doesn't beat it to the punch with an extension. And Sam Levitt is going to be a player who would be in demand as an experienced quarterback with some eligibility left, and to be frank, a guy who probably translates better to the college game than the pro game. I don't know that Sam Levitt's an NFL guy. I know he's a darn good college quarterback. I know you can win a league with him. Kind of a little Will Howard-ish. I mean, not in the sense that they're the same kind of player, but in the sense that they can have the same kind of impact on their team, despite maybe not being a guy that you project NFL first-round pick onto, which would make staying in college and making a boatload of money in college maybe a little bit more appealing to a player like Sam Levitt. So even if it's overstating it at this point to say that it is doubtful on November 18th of 2025, with 2 weeks of the season still left, that Sam Levitt is going to play for Arizona State next season. I absolutely believe that he is going to be wooed. He is going to have suitors. He is going to have gentleman callers. Maybe not like that, but you get the idea, right? A gentleman with bags ready to drop a bag and get Sam Levitt to consider a future that does not include Arizona State. So that is going to be the big question as we move forward in all of college athletics. The big question is, how bad do you want it? But it's not the only question. How much are you willing to spend knowing that there's a chance that your investment might not go the way you want it to go? Because everybody's going to want to be Indiana, but Indiana is going to be the exception and not the rule, right? Like, that is its own thing. Kurt Cignetti and what they've fallen into there at Indiana. I say fallen into like it's all luck. It's not. But I don't think that's going to be super replicable. I don't think that the boosters at other schools that have not had the football success of like an Alabama, or a Georgia haven't achieved at that level, are going to all of a sudden say, oh yeah, we can be Indiana. Or if Indiana can do it, well, why can't we? Well, you probably can't. I still think we exist in an era where, yes, Indiana can break into the top 10. Texas Tech can break into the top 10. Vanderbilt can break into the top 10. Do I believe that those schools are going to be year in, year out national powers and win national championships? No. I think at the end of the day, the national championships are going to go home to where they've always gone home to. Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Florida State, if they ever get their act together, LSU, schools like that. That's where the national championships are probably going. So how much are you willing to spend knowing that your investment might not get you the payoff you're looking for? Existential question for a lot of college football programs out there, because if you swing and miss and you get it wrong and the money gets pulled back, then you've sacrificed part of your identity to chase something that you never got. And then where does that leave you? By the way, one program in very real danger of maybe arriving at that conclusion in Manhattan. That's what they have to decide at Kansas State. Like, we want to go big. We want to be really good. There's a lot of want-to, I believe, in Manhattan. But where do you get to the point where you balance level of investment with, you know what? Winning 10 games and occasionally winning the Big 12 is pretty great too. Let's just be the best Kansas State we can be instead of being something beyond what Kansas State's ever been. Like, how do you counterbalance that desire? It's a larger question than I think Headlines is probably equipped to answer. Maybe we'll ask Tim Fitzgerald when we have him on tomorrow on 580 Sports Talk. Speaking of money in college sports, this actually broke yesterday. We didn't get around to it, but I did want to talk about this. Reporting from Dan Wetzel and Pete Thamel of ESPN, a private capital plan that would have infused $2.4 billion into Big Ten athletic departments has been paused in the face of opposition from league members Michigan and USC. UC Investments is the capital firm in question here, tied to the pension fund of a notably non-Big 12 school, Big 10 school, the University of California, announced on Monday that it would wait for unity among conference schools before proceeding. The statement read, "We remain convinced the unity of the 18 Big 10 university members is the key to the success of the deal. We also recognize that some member institutions need more time to assess the benefits of their participation. UC Investments likewise requires some additional time to complete our due diligence as recent developments unfold, and we continue to engage with the conference." The plan called for the league to spin off a new entity, Big Ten Enterprises, and that would have housed all the league-wide media rights and sponsorship deals. It would have granted UC Investments a 10% stake in Big Ten Enterprises. It would have extended the league's grant of rights through 2046, and it would have distributed the money to the schools on a tier basis. Higher, larger programs getting more money. Ohio State, Michigan ending up with more than Northwestern and Purdue. You would think like the Northwesterns and the Purdues of the world would be opposed to this, but they're happy to be on a lifeboat, right? They're happy to be tied to the Big Ten, and they want to stay in the Big Ten because the alternative is you're cut adrift. The report is that 16 schools are all for this, 16 of the 18 schools. The two schools that aren't, USC. Why isn't USC in favor of this? They think they should be on the top tier and get as much money as Ohio State does or Michigan does, because that's where they view themselves in relation to the importance of the conference. They're probably not wrong about that, to be honest. But that's one holdout. The other holdout is Michigan, and Michigan's a holdout because they don't need it. Michigan has flat out said, yeah, we're not desperate here. They're not going to do the money grab. I talked about this at Big 12 Basketball Media Day when Brett Yormark flat out said private capital doesn't work for us. Doing private equity right now does not work for the Big 12 conference, that they're betting on themselves. Why would you sell a stake if you believed in your long-term ability to ultimately make that money and then not owe it to a capital firm, not owe back a payment or interest to a capital firm? That's where Michigan's at. We're doing fine. We're not going to sell out for an extra $100 million. We don't need that. We're the University of Michigan. It's an institutional arrogance that Michigan has had for a very long time about itself. Not that it's totally wrong, but it is institutional arrogance. And in this case, it's one of the only things standing between college sports and the probably inevitable, eventually, infusion of private equity. But it's not happening in the Big Ten, and I don't think Michigan's ever going to bend. And if they don't ever bend, maybe this thing never gets done in the Big Ten. But there's not really any reason for Michigan to change their stance on this. So that's how that story continues. Continuing our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Aaron Rodgers does not need surgery on his left non-throwing wrist, according to Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin. He has not been ruled out for Sunday's game at the Chicago Bears as a result. He will not practice Wednesday. Friday will be the day in which it is determined that whether or not Aaron Rodgers can play, which is wonderful news for Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers gets to be in the news for an entire week. He's kind of operated under the radar this year, if you really think about it. Like, he's not going on McAfee, right? He stopped doing the McAfee hits where he'd go on and say some wild stuff about DMT or aliens or politics that made people go, dude, you're a football player. Please stop talking. Dude, your brain feels exceptionally broken. Please, we do not want to hear you talk about chemtrails. Please talk about throwing the football. Please do not talk about wellness retreats. Please, begging Aaron Rodgers to stick to sports at a certain point, right? And he's avoided that this year and kept his head down. He's played some decent football. Two might even be related, honestly. But we do know also that Aaron Rodgers loves attention. And he gets a lot of attention this week because there will be a lot of eyes on him, whether or not he can make it to Sunday and play against the team in the Bears that he has tormented for his entire career. Other quarterback news. No C.J. Stroud for the Texans against the Bills on Thursday Night Football. He remains in concussion protocol. He was concussed 2 weeks ago in a loss to the Broncos. Didn't play in week 11 for Houston. Also didn't play in week 10. So it's 2.5 games, essentially. And now it will be 3.5 games that Stroud misses after this concussion. But there is good news. It is expected that Stroud will be able to return for the Texans game against the Colts in Indianapolis on week 13. One last headline. We'll go to baseball for this one. It was the deadline was today for the players who were offered the qualifying offer across Major League Baseball. And again, what the qualifying offer is, it's a 1-year deal. It's sort of the baseball equivalent of the franchise tag. A team can offer it to a departing free agent. And that player can decide whether or not to accept it. And if the player does not accept it, they become a free agent. But any team that signs that player has to forfeit some draft picks, depending on where they stand in the revenue sharing pool or where they stood in the standings last year. And then the team that loses the player that they offer the qualifying offer is also compensated. They receive draft compensation in return. So it's a way, I guess you devise it as a way to make it so that teams are wanting to invest in their own free agents, and it gives teams a chance to be compensated, teams that maybe don't have the money to re-sign a top free agent, though they all have the money. We've been over this. But like to pretend they don't have the money to sign a top free agent, they get at least something back in return when that player leaves. But it's a system that has its pros and its cons. Anyway, 4 players accepted the qualifying offer, which this year is $22.025 million. 4 players accepted the qualifying offer. Brandon Woodruff, pitcher for the Brewers, who's been on and off the injured list pretty frequently the last couple of years. Not surprised he'd take a 1-year, $22 million deal effectively as a prove-it deal. If he can stay healthy next year, he heads out to free agency. He can make a whole lot more money. Shota Imanaga of the Cubs. The Cubs declined their team option on Imanaga, which I believe was 3 years and $66 million. So something in the neighborhood of $22 million. Cubs didn't want to give him that over the next 3 years because Imanaga is in his 30s. And though he was mostly good last year, he was terrible down the stretch to the point where they didn't even consider starting him in an elimination game in the playoffs. Imanaga, in turn, declined his own player option for next year, which was in the mid-teens for millions of dollars. The Cubs offered him the qualifying offer, and Imanaga took it. So he'll make $22 million next year, pitch for the Cubs. That's probably a win-win all the way around if Imanaga can bounce back. Trent Grisham of the Yankees, who had a really fluky power year this last year, hit a career-high 34 home runs. It's not really that kind of power hitter. Probably won't ever do that again. So he's coming off of a career year. He's a good defender in center field, but again, aging into his 30s. He took the qualifying offer, so he'll remain a Yankee. And Gleyber Torres, a name that we talked about last week as a possible fit at second base for the Royals in free agency. Well, he's not getting to free agency. He will remain with the Tigers for 1 year and $22 million. Now, the impetus to take the qualifying offer is you don't think you'll make that much money next year on the open market. You want to have another good year, get back to the market, and maybe make more money. There's also, of course, the looming threat of labor unrest that looms over Major League Baseball and an uncertain next offseason where the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, expires. And some players might be compelled to take a shorter-term deal because you know you'll get it and be able to play. And then you go into free agency next year, and the economic realities of the game under a new CBA could be very, very different for you. Different in a good way or different in a bad way if the owners get the salary cap that they've wanted for, let me check here, like 50, 60 years. They're never getting it, which is why we're having a lockout, because the strongest union in professional sports is the Major League Baseball Players Association. They have been able to hold out on the salary cap. No other league's been able to do it. Baseball's been able to do it. There's irony in baseball, which I think by and large, their player, like the players in Major League Baseball probably skew the most conservative politically. Like I don't think that's a particularly controversial thing to say out loud, and I'm not saying that with any judgment. It's like where they're from and what tax bracket they reside in, what demographic they largely tend to be. It is a collection of adult males that would skew pretty heavily conservative politically, except when it comes to their rights as members of a union. Then they turn into Eugene Debs. So there's a little irony in that if you pay attention. But those are the 4 players to the qualifying offer. That's a bit of a diversion away from the headline. Those 4 guys took the qualifying offer, and I mostly bring it up because of Torres, because I really would have liked his fit in Kansas City. I don't know that he would have made $22 million a year on the open market, so he took the $22 million sitting right in front of him. Hard to blame him. We'll take a break. When we come back to the Chiefs. Is their offense a little stale? Have they stagnated on offense? I think in 2 specific ways they have, and we'll talk about that next here on 580 Sports Talk. 5:37 on 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you get your questions in for Random Question Tuesday / Ask Dan Anything today to wind down the show. I'll take your questions. Text line is 785-272-9429. You can drop them into the YouTube chat as well. Turn on the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. Come hang out and enjoy the show in visual form here for the last 23 minutes or so. I want to be clear before I address the question again of whether the Chiefs offense has gone stale. The Chiefs offense is still good. Okay? There's plenty of evidence for this. Ben Baldwin, who posts lots of football stats and graphs on social media, you can find him at RBSDM, or Running Backs Don't Matter, which is a running gag from the internet. RBSDM.com is where he has some of his statistical information. Puts out graphics on his social media accounts. He's on X at Ben B. Baldwin. The Chiefs score or do something productive with their offensive series more than any team in the NFL but one, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. As a percentage, the Chiefs scored touchdowns on 11% of their drives, or series. So, like, you start with first down and 10. How does that series end? 68% of the time, it ends in another first down, and then you reset it. That's a new series. 11% of the time, they score a touchdown. 8% of the time, they kick a field goal. Only 13% of the time, a series ends with a punt or fumble or interception. So that's 87% of first and 10 scenarios ending in a positive outcome. And only the Colts are better. And it's not by much. 88% of their offensive series. If you're curious, the Rams and the Bills are next on the list with 84% of their offensive series resulting in either a touchdown, first down, or a field goal. So in terms of doing what needs doing, keeping the chains moving, scoring points, Chiefs still good at doing that. Another number from Jesse Newell on social media today, friend of the program, Chiefs beat writer for The Athletic. As a percentage, offensive drives that end in a score for the Chiefs, 48.9% this season. That is better than any of the previous 3 seasons in which the Chiefs reached the Super Bowl. They scored on 43% of their possessions last year. They scored on 39% of their possessions 2 years ago and still won the Super Bowl. They have scored on 48.9%. Nearly half the time they touch the ball, they score. So this is not to say, again, it's one of those things, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the Chiefs offense, it's not that it's broken, but there are elements of it that are not working. We talked in the top of the show about the running game and that it is not good. It is not explosive. The talent level isn't there. And it is on track to be one of the least explosive running games of this century. As a percentage of explosive handoffs, only the 2007 Chiefs and the 2024 Chiefs are the two worst teams of this century when it comes to generating explosive plays on handoffs. And this year's team is worse than those. So there's no fixing that. There's no fixing that. But talking about the running game yesterday on his weekly Zoom, Andy Reid said something to the effect of, we call a lot of RPOs, but most of the time those RPOs end up being passes, is effectively what he said. And that's a fact. Price Carter, who hosts a podcast over at Arrowhead Addict, does a lot of Chiefs film stuff on social media. He did the numbers on this. The Chiefs have run this season 95 RPOs. That is the second most in the league, just ahead of the Saints, only behind the Commanders. 95 RPOs for the Chiefs. RPO, run pass option. Quarterback makes the read. Usually you're reading one defender. The idea is no matter what happens, the defense is wrong. You're usually reading a key defender. It's usually a linebacker or a safety. They come down to play the run. You throw the pass behind them. If they stay back to play a zone, you hand the ball off and you take advantage of a numbers advantage and a flat-footed defender. 77 of the 95 RPOs have been passes. 77 of 95. They only run the ball out of the RPO 18 times. So when you say, like a texter from the 785, Chiefs offense is predictable, run the ball, wouldn't kill you from time to time, this is not as much an Andy Reid thing as it is a Patrick Mahomes thing or a defense thing. But I'm good with just stripping the RPOs out of the playbook, running those less. Because even when the Chiefs run them, the Chiefs have gained the most yards on passing RPOs this year, but they've run a pass on the RPOs more than 15 times more than any other team. This is actually kind of funny. The Broncos have run 62 RPO passes for 372 yards. The Chiefs' 77 attempts have gone for 609 yards. Pretty big difference. That's a difference between having a guy like Mahomes, having a guy like Bo Nix. But the 18 rush attempts for the Chiefs have gone for 106 yards. And that's not bad. It's 5 yards a pop. More than 5 yards a pop, even. It's not bad, but you're just predictable. If you're in an RPO setup, the ball's coming out of Mahomes' hand, and it's not going to the running back. So, yes, too predictable in that regard. I agree with that 100%. The other thing that isn't working, and we talked about this earlier because Ben Solak had this stat in his mailbag column at ESPN.com today. Patrick Mahomes has thrown passes behind the line of scrimmage, not backward passes, but passes that are caught behind the line of scrimmage 91 times this season. And that's not just receptions. That's total throws that are intended for a receiver behind the line of scrimmage. 91 passes. Now, typically when you think about a pass thrown behind the line of scrimmage, what is that? That's a screen, right? That's a tunnel screen. That's a bubble screen. That's a flare screen. That's a running back, halfback screen. Screen passes. 91 for Mahomes this year. Most in the league, by far. But they only gain 5 yards of play on those screens, which is just above the league average on such plays. And they only generate explosive plays 6.6% of the time, which is well below average compared to the rest of the league. And again, explosive play on the pass, you're hoping you gain 20 yards on a pass. The Chiefs don't have that game-breaking ability on the screen. Screen stuff is just okay. It's not great. So those are the two ways for me in which this offense has indeed gotten a little stale. The screen pass stuff isn't as effective, and the RPO stuff is too predictable. 785-272-9429 is the text line. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. I want your questions for Ask Me Anything. We're going to do that to round down the show next on 580 Sports Talk. 547 on 580 Sports Talk. My name is Dan Lucero. Solo for this final hour today. Typically on Tuesday, we do a little thing called Random Question Tuesdays. We ask each other random questions. There is no each other today. It's just me. So I am beseeching you, the listener, to submit your questions to me, and I'm happy to answer them in a segment we call Ask Me Anything. Totally original name. Nobody has ever used that name for anything else ever before. But I am interested in your questions. So send them as a text, 785-272-9429. You can also, of course, if you are watching on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, drop them in the live chat window as well. And I can see them in there and can answer your questions in there. All right, first one. These are two questions. They're both sports questions. So we'll start with a little sports from the 785. What quarterback in the NFC would you take this year over Sam Darnold outside of Hurts, Goff, Baker, Stafford, and maybe Dak? Well, that's like half the quarterbacks in the conference right there. So you guys know I'm a Seahawks fan. Not really thrilled with Sam Darnold. Threw 4 picks on Sunday and a 2-point loss to the Rams. Honest to goodness, I know what the numbers say. And it's funny how this works, right? You can look at another team that you don't have like a deep, undying passion for, and you could just be real analytically minded about it and say, well, yeah, well, I mean, this is what the numbers say. This is what the analytics have to say. You know, if something goes wrong, you know, and the quarterback has an otherwise good track record, you can depend on them bouncing back. But when it's the team you love, you turn into a total Neanderthal and you start saying stuff like, I want a winner. I want a guy who knows how to win. That's where I'm at with Sam Darnold. I just don't think he's a winner. It's stupid, right? Because, like, again, I know that the analytics say there's nobody playing better in the NFC and maybe in all of football than Sam Darnold this year. I know what that says. I've also watched him turn the ball over a lot this season. And I watched him in the playoffs last year look terrified of the Rams. And I saw him again on Sunday look terrified of the Rams in a big have-to-have-it must-win game. And so that is my displeasure with Sam Darnold, not his caliber of play this season. He's been awesome. He has. He's played better than any of those guys that you named, to be completely honest with you. Other than maybe Stafford, he's played better than all of those guys. But I might take all of them except for Dak Prescott in a game you absolutely have to win. And there are other guys I'd be more interested in taking in a game you absolutely have to win, because I don't think that guy's going to win that game. Other question from that listener, and I appreciate the question, from the 785. Could the Big Ten vote to kick Michigan and USC out so they can get their media rights deal done? The problem there is that their media rights are much less valuable without Michigan and USC. 2 of their 3 most important brands. They're not kicking them out. The Big Ten without Michigan, like, what's the point? So, no, they are not going to kick them out for the sake. Northwestern and Purdue are not going to kick Michigan and USC out of the conference to provide for their own future. That is not how that is going to fly. We'll stay on the text line from the 785. Did your child say mama or papa first? Proud to say it was dada first for Asher. Dada still comes really easily to him. Like just this morning, there's a picture that's in the basement of our house that is our wedding photo. And it's me and my wife, and it's my parents and my brother and his wife and her parents and her sister and her husband. And he will point to everybody, and I will tell him like who everybody is in the picture. And it's really cute. But every time he picks up the picture, he says, Dada. Like I'm the only one he recognizes in the whole photo. So he is more Dada than mama. I don't think that's an insult. I know that he loves my wife, his mom, very, very much. But it was Dada first, and that gave me a thrill for sure. From the 615, will you pick me up a big cheese pizza next time you're in Salina? No promises. But I actually have never had a big cheese pizza. So I can't judge that one way or another. But sounds like something I got to add to the list next time I'm in what Jake LeBon called God's country. From the 785, on a 1 to 10 scale, where would you rate your grilling skills? Pretty remedial, to be honest with you. We didn't even get the grill out this summer. It was just not happening for us. I do okay. You know, burgers, steaks, chops, vegetables, very remedial. I've not stepped it up to like ribs. I just have a grill. I don't have a smoker. So I got a long way to go. I am probably a very average griller. I would probably rate myself a 5. I've got a lot to learn. And I look forward to learning it someday. But I got a lot to learn. From the 785, would you rather deal with an overtired, hungry toddler or scoop 18 inches of snow off your driveway? Oh, man, that's a good question. Holy cow. The snow. And I hate shoveling snow, but the snow. The hard thing about having an overtired, hungry toddler is they're sad. And I hate when people I love are sad. So that's harder for me than the snow. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what we got from the text line. Vance, or from the YouTube comments. You have a unique opinion on whether a hot dog is a sandwich. Enlighten us. I got to go quick on some of these here. So I'll just say this. A hot dog is not a sandwich. A hot dog is a taco. Just think about it. Think about how it's constructed. The bun is constructed. And think about how a taco is constructed. A hot dog is a taco. Next question. Mark. Did you ever do a high school football game in Cozad, Scottsbluff, Chadron, or Valentine, Nebraska, or Sheridan, Wyoming? No to all 4 of those places. I did high school softball in Scottsbluff and a bunch of JUCO basketball in both Scottsbluff and, as it turns out, Sheridan, Wyoming, but never high school football in any of those places. Mark H., what's your favorite color and car model? I can't say I'm a big car guy, Mark, but I'll tell you what. Every time I see a Corvette on the road, I'm always in awe. Those are really cool cars. But I've never been a big car guy. Mark B, again, what's Asher's latest favorite food? Bananas and pumpkin bread. He is loving pumpkin bread. Every morning we get this pumpkin bread at Aldi. Like, really good. My wife likes it. But we never get to eat it because Asher wants it every day for his breakfast snack before we send him to daycare. So right now, yeah, banana bread, pumpkin bread, and just bananas are his absolute favorites. One more from the text line. Man, I wish I had more time for this one. For the 785, what does my next 10 years look like? I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. If in 10 years I'm answering questions from all you good folks on an episode of 580 Sports Talk, I would be okay with that. I really and truly would. Obviously, Asher's going to grow up. Whether my wife and I have more kids remains to be seen. But Asher will be growing up. I look forward to coaching him if he decides to play sports and supporting him in whatever he likes to do. If he doesn't get into sports, I'm looking forward to it. Like, those would be my 40s. So I'm hoping to be more active, hoping to get out, play a little more golf in my 40s. But my next 10 years, I just, as long as I've got my wife and my boy, and I'm good with whatever else comes. I'm happy if my next 10 years are just me. I get to be a family man. I'm good with that. And if, again, I get to take questions from you folks, I'm good with that too. Thanks for the questions today. We'll wrap the show up with a final word next. Very short amount of time for a final word today. Thanks for all the great questions on Ask Me Anything. Gosh, you guys ask good questions. I really enjoy doing that. I'd do it more often if I could, but it is a little self-indulgent. But every now and again, it's nice to indulge ourselves, right? Anyway, final word for me today. The question, what is wrong with the Chiefs, has a lot of answers, but I don't know that the answers are elusive for the Chiefs. And we're going to talk a little bit more tomorrow about the idea that maybe they're tapped out emotionally, energy-wise, and you're going to have to tune in to tomorrow's show to hear me expand on that. So we'll look forward to being back with you tomorrow from 3 until 6. K-State women's basketball is next. For Spencer, I'm Dan. This was 580 Sports Talk. Good night.